Uh-huh. I just feel like I've been around the block, ripping up fantasy stock, working around the clock. Look at the view from the top. Researching rookies a lot? No, I just be listening to pods, yeah. One in particular, I'm just a messenger, let me just pass on the rock. Browning, brunning, pruning, pronouncing ain't what he's doing. What he's doing is not losing, but infusing you with new things. And there's Dennis the Bennett, yeah. The man is a menace, yeah. Building a dynasty, some of the finest things. Promise you, you won't regret it. Sly as a fox, cultured in pop. Give him his props. Here is a thought, here is a box. And you cannot compare them at all, so don't even try. Careful with the news, but when you use a take, I take up Tony Fire. I mean Dyer, because anyone else is a huge mistake. Whoa. Fantasy round table, fantasy round table. Yeah. Fantasy round table, come take a look at the crown, baby. Hey, fantasy round table, fantasy round table. Woo. Fantasy round table, come take a look at the crown, baby. Go.
What is going on, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Fantasy Football Roundtable Podcast. It is Wednesday, December 22nd. I have got Matt here with me. We are going to recap the 4 games we did not get to on Monday's episode. Browns, Raiders, Bears, Vikings, Eagles, Washington, Seattle, LA. It took me a minute to get there. And then we will obviously preview the Thursday Night Football game as well. And Matt and myself will talk a little bit about Spiderman Homecoming. We were both able to see it. No Way Home. We'll talk that one too, definitely, because that was really good. Man, this has been a great start to the episode. We will talk Spider-Man.
I just thought you had a mini stroke when you had to relive the Browns-Raiders game.
That's honestly what happened. I was really hoping we could just not talk about that game altogether. We'll talk a little bit. We will definitely give you guys a major heads up before we get into that for those of you who haven't seen it, so we don't give away any spoilers. We won't be talking Hawkeye today. I don't know if you've seen it.
I have not.
Okay.
My wife actually really likes it, as does yours now.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, that was a little frustrating part about it. I should not let her watch these shows. So we will probably talk Hawkeye next weekend or next week. Yeah. So before we jump into all that good stuff, though, we would like to let you guys know we are proud to be a part of the Pigskin Podcast Network. You can find them at TPPN on Twitter. Search the hashtag TPPN, or you can find them at PigskinPodNet on Twitter. All right, Matt, let's got a lot more to get through than typically for Wednesday shows. So let's do this here with this game right here. You mentioned it. I mean, just what a horrible game to watch. I mean, if you guys watched Monday, you saw at least how excited I was for a lot of the parts of that game. But the Browns end up losing on a walk-off field goal to the Raiders, 16-14. The Raiders get the win to stay alive. What do you think about them going forward? I mean, you mentioned it on Monday's show. Got a brutal stretch down these last 3 weeks.
Yeah, I mean, I was a little surprised that they were able to hold on and win. It had seemed like the Raiders' MO, last few seasons was to start hot and kind of fade away. You thought that was happening. That win, keeps them alive, but it doesn't get a lot easier. They have a game with the Broncos in Denver. Or at home the day after Christmas. Then they are at the Colts, who are red hot, and they close at home against the Chargers. I'm kind of, I don't know where you're at, but I'm of the opinion they would have, at least 2, but I think they probably have to win all 3 to get in. And that feels like a tall order, especially, that Colts game, because I think the Colts are red hot. I think they have a chance to get a win this week and really be pressing toward winning their own division by the time they hit week 17.
Yeah, I mean, I was talking a little bit about this with someone today. I think it's weird as it is to say it because the Raiders beat the Browns. I think the Browns still have a better shot of making the playoffs just because of the schedule they have in front of them compared to the Raiders. I mean, they have with the Chargers and the Chiefs, I think, are 2 of their last 3 games. It's not and both those teams, I mean, even though the Chargers did lose to the Chiefs, obviously, last week, the Chargers still have a lot in front of them, so I don't think either one of them is going to be mailing it in at all the last couple of weeks. I actually don't think anybody is with as tight as these races are in the AFC, NFC, so we're going to see all these teams playing down to the wire. So, I do think it's good, obviously, for Raiders fans and that team, because as you mentioned earlier, I mean, they typically have kind of like folded down the stretch where they haven't done that this year, so they're going to be playing for a playoff spot likely right up until Week 18, so that is always somewhat fun unless you don't make it in, and then it's a little bit heart-wrenching to know you went to week 18. I'm one of those people where I'd rather you just let me know in like week 10 we ain't making it so I can just try and enjoy football. But much like the Raiders fans, the Browns fans are going to be agonizing about that as well, and it was a tough loss for us. What do they need the last 3 weeks to get into the dance?
They're another one that's in a situation I think they'd have to be almost darn near perfect. Their division is a little bit tighter and a little bit more winnable probably than the AFC West is right now because the Chiefs have put some air between them and everyone else. Well, that hasn't exactly happened with the Bengals and the Ravens kind of just being there only a game up. But a brutal closing schedule. You mentioned the at the Packers on Christmas Day, which is probably the opposite of a gift for you. But then at the Steelers, which figures to be a pretty physical game, the last Monday Night Football game of the year, and then closing home against the Bengals. Now, and it's hard for me to see them winning 3. It's hard even to see winning 2. I mean, I think a better shot against the Steelers and the Bengals, and maybe 2 is enough to win that division. I don't know if it's enough to win into the wild card. I think in the AFC, you're going to have to get to 10 wins to be a wild card.
Yeah, I agree with you. Me and a couple people were having like a big NFL discussion today. And that's what I told them because they were like, oh, well, they still have a chance. I'm like, it's not a realistic chance in my opinion. Like we talked a lot about it last week. I felt like they needed to win at least 3 of their last 4 games. And that was me accounting for them losing likely to the Packers this weekend because that was the toughest game left on their schedule. Even though Pittsburgh did beat them earlier this year, they were in the game the whole time. I think, a couple things swing your way. You get that win. They trounced the Bengals earlier this year. But losing that game to the Raiders, I mean, I'm with you. I think they have to win the next 3, and that's asking a lot because Green Bay, I think, is one of not only the best team, in my opinion, in the NFC, they're one of the best teams in all the NFL, and they have a lot to play for because if they lose, they're no longer the 1 seed this weekend if Dallas wins because Dallas has a better conference record than the Packers. So the Packers have everything in the world to play for right now. I don't see them, especially on Christmas Day in Lambeau. Like maybe if it was in Cleveland with them getting everybody back and maybe feeling a little bit of, whatever, like we got screwed or however, get a little chip on your shoulder, they have a shot. But Myles Garrett pulled up hurt at the end of that game as well. He's dealing with a groin, less time to recover as well because that was on Monday night. They're playing Saturday. I mean, there's a lot going against them. It just looks like after such a great year last year and being literally a couple yards away from making it to the AFC Championship game, they will not make the playoffs this year, which is insane to think about.
Hey, at least you're not Denver where that Raiders win dropped Denver to 13th in the conference. The only people below us in the AFC are the Jets, Texans, and Jaguars.
But they have at least a decent record. Like, I think at this point, I'd rather take that draft pick. I mean, because that's the bad thing. Like, the Browns are likely going to, they'll end up missing the playoffs by 1 game, and they're going to be like, around like pick 16, 17, which is okay. It's an okay pick. But I want it to be much better. I'd much rather them just like lose the next 3 games, if I'm being honest. And let's get a really good player because, is Sam Howell going to make it to the Browns? That's what I'm going to. I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. No, maybe sort of. I don't know. I have reservations about a lot of the Browns players right now. An NFC North battle was also. I'm gonna be honest. All these games kind of sucked. Monday and Tuesday, but the Vikings beat the Bears 17-9. The Vikings win to stay alive. Thoughts on this offense moving forward?
Yeah, it was really interesting. I mean, you're playing Jefferson, you're playing Cook, but Kirk Cousins, he had 2 touchdowns, which helps, but he only threw for 87 yards and an interception, which was interesting. They have kind of a brutal next 2-game stretch. They're home, but they got the Rams. I don't think that's an easy game. And then they're at the Packers, and we just talked about the Packers will probably still have plenty to play for, even in Week 17, even though the division is over. They're trying to play for that first-round bye and that home field advantage. They close the season with another game against the Bears, which I know we're all excited about after seeing that Monday night battle. But I'm actually, there's enough teams at 7-7 competing for that last spot, plus a couple of 8-6 teams. that I'm actually of the opinion now in the NFC that you were going to have to get to 9 wins. I don't, we were jokingly wondering, would it be an under 500 team be able to make it? I don't think in either conference that's going to get it done. And it's hard for me to imagine the Vikings winning 2 of those last 3.
Yeah, I think the only thing, well, I feel like this is actually probably going to end up being true. I think the only thing that sucks for Vikings fans in them winning is they're likely, as I agree with you, they're not going to win 2 of the last 3, but they're going to do just well enough that they're going to end up keeping Zimmer for another year. And it's just going to be torture again all over for Vikings fans, because the Bears fans are thrilled, probably a little bit, that they lost here. Matt Nagy looks like he's on his way out the door, though he's at least, scratching and clawing. I mean, he's trying to fight everybody on the sidelines and everything. He's doing everything he can to keep his job over there. But your thoughts on Justin Fields? Played okay. I thought he played much better in the second half than he did the first half in this one. Fantasy-wise, and, we'll talk about another quarterback who's struggling NFL but doing really good for fantasy here in a minute. He's actually been top 10 in last 4 of his 5 starts. Justin Fields has been. So for fantasy, he's getting it done. Not looking that great on the NFL field. And is this going to be the end for Matt Nagy?
Yeah, I mean, I think it is the end for Matt Nagy, that they've got to go a different way. I think it could also be the end for their general manager, Ryan Pace. But we'll have to see. It's just stranger things have happened. For Fields, though, I do feel like we've seen some improvement. He didn't really get to show much in that Baltimore game where he got injured and knocked out and then missed a couple. But, he was pretty hot before that. That game against Pittsburgh, he didn't look too bad, 291 yards, kind of getting it going. Had 224 against Green Bay, had some good moments. Green Bay is, a vastly superior team. And then had some decent moments last night, threw for 285 yards. I would like to see the completion percentage get better. He's still rocking, I think it's 50. He's at 58. Yeah, 58.9%. We need to see that come up. He's turned the ball over a lot, but that happens with younger quarterbacks. I think he's looked, we talked about these rookie quarterbacks have not exactly been as robust as we expected. Mac Jones is where Mac Jones is. I would argue Fields has looked the second best. He looks like he's been making improvement, and he probably, Mac Jones doesn't have great weapons. Neither does Justin Fields. You would say Allen Robinson, but that guy hasn't been available a lot. They don't seem to really know what they're doing there. A lot of the time you're using players like Jakeem Grant, who's a journeyman, Marquise Goodwin, who's a journeyman, a lot of people in there, Darnell Mooney kind of trying to develop. And I just don't, his system seems so wildly inconsistent. So I've been, I guess, a little more impressed with his efforts.
Yeah, me and Felix were actually going back and forth about this in our Campus to Canton Discord. He posted during that game, because he loves to call Justin Fields Bustin' Fields because he thinks he's going to be a bust. So I don't know if he's being serious or just saying that to kind of poke at me. But he was talking about, he's like, I guess me and Matt need to both admit that we were wrong on Justin Fields and Zach Wilson. I'm like, I'm not ready to give up on Fields, though. Like, Fields has shown me a lot. He has not played nearly as perfect as I thought. I mean, I made the statement. I thought he was going to take the Bears to the playoffs. So he's clearly not been that good. But I don't know how much of that is on him. He definitely needs to improve some things. We talked a little bit. I think you mentioned a couple weeks ago. It was either last week or the week prior with the interception he threw. Like, he's still tending to stare down wide receivers at times. There's things that he could do better. But in my opinion, they've both played the same amount of games. Stats-wise, he has a better completion percentage than Zach Wilson. Now, Zach Wilson has more yards, and I think they're, like, right at the same in touchdowns. So, like, I think Fields has a lot more to improve on and can be better. And I also do think Zach Wilson can too, but I'm with you. Like, I think he has been the second best rookie to Mac Jones. So that's going to be, I guess, the big thing is what happens with Nagy. If they do move on from Pace, like, what all does that mean? Because we've seen, especially if they move on from Pace too, they're not going to like bring somebody in who doesn't believe in Justin Fields, but that also could mean a shorter stint for Fields than maybe we were expecting. I don't want to compare the two because Josh Rosen doesn't have, I think, the entire skill set that Justin Fields does. But we saw that happen in Arizona. We've seen that happen in other plays. Dwayne Haskins in Washington, like, does this possibly mess up the future now for Justin Fields, though, as well, if he's not able to improve quickly under the new coaching staff? If they kept Ryan Pace, I'd feel a little bit better about that. But if they get rid of both of them, I mean, I don't know that speaks great things for Justin Fields either. So it'll be very interesting to see what happens with the Bears this offseason. Jalen Hurts, I mean, say what you want about him from an NFL perspective. Dude's crushing it in fantasy, and that's realistically all we care about. Now, we have to worry about the NFL side because if he doesn't produce on the NFL side, he's unfortunately not, he's not going to be. Blake Bortles eventually was not a starting quarterback anymore. It was great as he was for fantasy. But, I mean, he gets it done, 27-17 against Washington. Matt, is it a case of Washington just being too beat up to compete at this point?
Yeah, so Washington a couple weeks ago seemed like they were in great position. They were 6-6, had worked their way back up to 500, looked like they were on track to be in the playoffs, and they closed with 5 division games, alternating between the Cowboys and the Eagles over the next 4. They've come out and lost both those first 2 games to the Cowboys and Eagles. They play the Cowboys again this week, then right back to the Eagles. I think with the injuries and the COVID and all the other challenges that they have right now, sitting at 6-8, I don't think they win this week. And once you get down to 6-9, I think, like I said, I think you're going to have to get to 9 wins to get in, even in the NFC. I think they missed their window.
Yeah, and I mean, the COVID situation this week was obviously not great, but they've been dealing with injuries for the past couple of weeks now. I mean, Antonio Gibson pulled up lame in that one. They couldn't even start Heineke. So I'm with you. Maybe if they had started the season off better, they'd be in a little bit of a better spot right now, but that defense has kind of struggled all season. I'll be interested to see what happens with them as well. I mean, Heineke has kind of struggled a little bit in his last couple of games. I'd be curious to see if they do continue to give him the starting shot. Ryan Fitzpatrick is going to be a free agent. I don't know if they bring him back. There's a lot of questions around Washington now as well, a lot more than we thought coming into the season. For the Eagles, are they starting to figure it out? I mean, they're technically in the thick of it. Are they contenders or pretenders, as everybody always says?
I think they're contenders. We thought there would be a chance that whichever of the teams emerged from the NFC East would be one that would have a chance. They have the Giants, then back to Washington, close with the Cowboys. I think they could win their next 2, which would put them at 9-7. They can't win the East, but I think they could get into the wild card. And I've liked what Hurts is doing. Overall for the season, it's not been too bad for his first, big run of starts. He's made 13 starts. He's completed 61% of his passes, 61.3. I thought he looked a little better as a passer as well. In this week 15, we talked about what we had seen from Gardner Minshew. Was that going to make them think twice, about Hurts because Minshew looked so comfortable as a passer? 20 of 26 last night, 296 passing yards. He had a TD, had an interception, was able to use his weapons, really had a great rapport with Goddard. I like what they're doing. I think they have enough defense that they could sneak in there. Be curious to see. Nick Sirianni did pop positive for COVID. Probably means he's out this week. I don't know if you necessarily need your head coach to beat the Giants in their current state, but that's not as great for them.
Yeah, I mean, I'll be interested to see how much that affects the play calling on the offense, because obviously he does make all the play calls, but we just saw him beat Washington. They get Washington in a week after the Giants, and then the big game will be the Cowboys. And I think that could be really interesting, obviously, for both sides, because if Dallas has won their last 2 coming into that game, and so is Green Bay, that'll be the final fight for the 1 seed. If the Packers lose and the Cowboys win, they get it. So the Cowboys will be going all out to win that game, and the Eagles might be fighting to get into the playoffs as a wild card as well. And it is in Philadelphia, so what a game that could be in the last week of the season for the Eagles and the Cowboys. I'm with you. I mean, I think that they've been fairly good all season long. I think a lot of it was early on that defense struggle. They weren't quite as good as they've been in the second half of this season. Like, that defense has stepped up and Hurts. Me and you have talked a lot about Dennis has kind of been on the opposite side of us. He's continued to improve every single week. And, again, I know he's not the best passer in the world, but what he can do with his legs, I mean, realistically, I think he was a main reason why they won that game Tuesday night. So I'll be interested to see. I did a mock draft for the for the Camps to Canton YouTube channel, and I did 20 random drafts. Draft Network has like a really cool mock draft tool where they evaluate things. In about 13 of the mock drafts, they had the Eagles taking a quarterback in either the first or the second round. So Draft Network really thinks that they're going to take a quarterback early. I still think they should give Hurts a shot, but we'll see. We'll see what happens. I can't remember who it was they ended up with a lot of times, but it's not a quarterback. That one of them was Malik Willis, and I was like, you're just taking like a faster, bigger armed version of Jalen Hurts. I don't understand why I think you just try and build around him. But again, I'm not an NFL GM, so we'll leave that to the guys who are making their money, right? The Rams beat the Seahawks 20-10. Is it time to worry about Russell Wilson? Is it the injury? Do you think he just needs a change of scenery? What is going on up in Seattle?
Yeah, I mean, that was a pretty ineffective game for Wilson. He has not been very good coming back from injury. Struggled mightily in that first game with Green Bay, and again in the second game against Arizona. Saw a little bit better against Washington. Did okay against San Francisco. Did okay against Houston, but just another really kind of subpar game. I know he's missing Lockett. Doesn't seem to be in sync with Metcalf. What's concerning to me is we saw a late season fade last year, which had people asking some questions. I didn't think he was great to begin this year. It seems like there's a bad chemistry there too. So I think that is something to watch. Maybe a fresh start helps him, but maybe this is, a sign of some wear and tear.
Yeah, I just think he wants to get out. I mean, I was kind of surprised he came back. I think a lot of it was because they had kind of found a way to fight their way back into the playoff race with Geno Smith. But it, there were all the rumors about him requesting a trade earlier in the offseason. He never really, he denied it, but like didn't deny it. And then there were a lot of rumors reported by Jay Glazer earlier this year when he got hurt that he was going to request a trade again this offseason. I don't think Jay Glazer is one of the more plugged-in people in the NFL. He's not just saying that. So I think he needs to change the scenery. I've been saying I think maybe they need to move on from Pete Carroll. And then I was looking at this the other day, and with his contract, I don't know that they will. So I think one of those guys has got to go. And if they're not going to move on from Pete Carroll because of his contract, I think Russell Wilson just needs to move on because we've never seen Russ play this bad. I mean, my goodness, you guys saw I posted a thing in the chat. Now, granted, it's Scott Fishbowl scoring, which is a little bit harder on quarterbacks so that they're not always like the top scoring option every single week. But Russell Wilson scored negative points in that because he was just that bad in that game. And I hope it's the finger and him not just kind of like just trying to get through the season, but it's been bad for Russell this year. Maybe a change of scenery would be best for him next season. Cooper Kupp. I mean, we're getting very close to getting into the offseason where obviously we'll be able to, kind of go back through and rethink about things we had. I don't know where we all had Cooper Kupp to start off the season, but has he kind of moved himself into like the conversation? I heard a lot of people. I'm glad that you are asking this question because I heard a lot of people talking about it today on SiriusXM and on Twitter that he deserves to be wide receiver 1. I can't put him above Adams. I know he's having an amazing season. I think it's him and Adams in tier 1, and I'm not going to argue with you if you take Adams over him, but the track record, I can't put him at 1, but where are you putting Kupp in your dynasty rankings right now as we get closer to the offseason?
Yeah, and so probably a little bit of the danger that you want to stay away from is getting too sucked up into recency. Now, he's having a career year. He's played 14 games so far. He has 164 targets. That's 40 more targets than he's had in any other 30 more targets, than he's had in his best season in the past, which was a 16-game season in 2019. He has 122 receptions. That's by far a career high. 1,625 yards, a career high. 14 touchdowns, already a career high. 13.3 yards per reception, already a career high. And he's having a career year. The thing that we liked is he's locked up on the long-term deal. I liked the move to Stafford and the offense he's in. And I think when I'm looking at dynasty rankings right now, I like Devontae Adams' talent. I have no idea what his team and situation are going to be because he hasn't signed a long-term deal with Green Bay, and we don't know what Green Bay is going to be like. If you told me he was continuing on with Aaron Rodgers for another 2 or 3 years in exactly the system and position that he's been in, I would probably feel better about saying they're in a tier by themselves. But really, for me, I think my top dynasty tier right now is Kupp, Jefferson, Lamb, and Chase because of their situation and the talent and explosion we've seen. And I know that a couple of those guys maybe haven't maximized their achievement, but we've seen Justin Jefferson do it for a couple of years right now. He has some questions about his situation too, a little bit, but I doubt you're going to find somebody that's doing worse than throwing for 87 yards in a game. Behind that, what I think is separating Kupp is we've always believed he had this ability, but we wondered if Jared Goff was holding him back. I feel like the answer to that question is yes.
Well, that's the funny thing, right? Like Goff hasn't been horrible with Detroit too. I wonder if they just—
He's not a terrible quarterback, and Kupp was good. He had a couple of top 10 years in there. It just was he able to maximize it. Stafford just takes it a little bit further.
Well, yeah, I think what Stafford does is I think the difference is, and it's why I've kind of come around more and more on the whole, I don't think the Lions want to replace Goff. Mm-hmm. I don't think he's really been the reason they've been losing games. I think Goff fits their offense better as Stafford does LA. Like, I think the switch has actually been better for both quarterbacks. Like, when Stafford was with Detroit, they wanted to go downfield all the time, but they didn't have Kenny Golladay is a great player, but he's not a down the field target guy. Like, he's a guy you contest to catch situations, probably more of a possession wide receiver. Whereas now he had that in Robert Woods. Like, Stafford could do all the things McVay wanted that I don't think Goff could do. So yeah, I'm with you there. Like, he's definitely maximized Kupp. I just don't want people to think like we're saying that as in a shitting on Jared Goff thing, because Goff's been good. Like, it's been really kind of surprising. I'm really excited for what Detroit might be able to do in the next couple of years, especially if they continue to build around Goff. But yeah, for me, I think it's those two in a tier of their own because of production. Like, I'm with you. You have to factor in the future with Adams a little bit. I think for me, it's a little bit different because he's proven it for so long, even without Aaron Rodgers. Now, if we had seen in the times that Aaron Rodgers had missed games that Devontae Adams was like a complete nothing, I would be a little bit more worried about wherever he goes, and even if it's not with Rodgers. But the fact that he was able to produce with Deshaun Kaiser, Jordan Love, and I cannot remember for the life of me who the quarterback was last year or 2 years ago.
Brett Hundley.
Brett Hundley, yeah. The fact that he was able to produce so well with those guys, I think he's smart enough that wherever he's not going to go to a bad team, right? So, even trust me, I'm not saying this happens. Go ahead. Yeah,
I don't question his production and his talent, but we've seen even elite receivers like a DeAndre Hopkins. We thought it was not a bad situation going to Arizona, where he seemed to have potentially a quarterback upgrade and a more high octane offense, but it hasn't translated into stable or ceiling fantasy production. And that's where, even if I knew Adams was staying in Green Bay, I might feel better. It's the fact that we don't know what team he is going to be on, and we don't know who his quarterback is going to be. He could, depending on all the things you're saying, because we've seen him produce and we like his talent, vault back up there. I have him a little bit further down now because of the uncertainty, I guess, because of that. But I agree with you that he is an amazing player. I don't question his talent. It just, we have seen sometimes that even amazing talents can't overcome the challenges with changing teams.
Yeah, that's what I don't know. I'm not as worried about it. Like, I do agree with what you're saying, and we have seen it. I just think the fact that he's been able to do it with worse off quarterbacks, unless he ends up going to a Patriots, which I guess, you know what? I don't even think that'd be that bad because he beat the one for
But
Mac Jones.
it's not just being the one, it's being somewhere where you know you're going to get 160 targets a year.
I think that
Nobody is a target draw that he is. He's like the focal point of the offense
yeah.
in Green Bay. So even if you went somewhere where it was a good, even if he follows Rodgers somewhere, if he's not getting the same share, what does that end up doing?
I admit that part because that's one of the reasons Cooper Kupp's been so good too, right? Is the volume. So you do have to factor that in, Hopkins and, everybody. That's the one I'll point to, I guess. And granted, he did go to Kyler Murray, Cliff Kingsbury, air it out often. So you do have to err on that side of caution, but we did not. There was a lot of, highly thought of analysts in this industry that said he wasn't even going to be a top 12 wide receiver going to Arizona. And
on the flip side, we've seen people like Stephon Diggs, who we thought had decent talent, but went to a situation we didn't appraise very highly. And I remember before last year, all of us had him down in the 20s.
I didn't even rank him at one point.
You forgot about him at one point.
Yeah.
So, it could go either way, but that's like, I guess my approach at this stage in the time when you're looking at Dynasty is, what do you feel certain about? Even guys like Calvin Ridley, who we know are staying in the same, I don't know how he's doing. And what is he like coming back and working himself back in? Or the season we just saw with A.J. Brown, he's staying in the same place. We like his talent. Do we trust the situation? Right now is a difficult time. I think it'll get easier to separate ourselves from what we've seen. I feel like with Adams, my tendency, like you, is the same way that I'm doing with weekly rankings, where it's Cooper Kupp and Devontae Adams, and then I'll figure out who the hell else I want to put behind them. But those guys have separated themselves. But as I sat there and tried to think about, well, what, if you're building a team right now, and that's kind of what Dynasty is. In Dynasty, you almost want to take the Bill Belichick approach to football. You'd rather be a year early than 2 years late.
That's true. The one other thing I'll say with Kupp, and I was trying to pull it up right now because I can't remember off the top of my head. Here we go. I think a lot of the recent production, though, has also been because Robert Woods went down. How much does that change? Because we've seen my biggest fear with Kupp is
he was getting peppered pretty hard even when Woods
but he wasn't putting up the 30, 27, 25, 20. Like earlier in the season, he had two really good ones with the 23 and 30, but then it was 26. And I remember Robert Woods kind of complained that it was like 8, 12. Then he came back 32. Then Woods got hurt. Then it was 35, 24, 20, 15, 25, 27, 33. I think having a guy like Robert Woods there, OBJ only signed for the 1 year, so I don't know if he'll be back. I'd just be curious if they added more weapons around him. Again, he's not going to take a massive step back. That is not what I'm saying, but I feel like that might bring him a tad bit back. So, like I said, for me, I don't have an issue. If we were doing a startup right now and you're like, I'm taking Cooper Kupp over Adams, I wouldn't say you're crazy. Just me personally, I would still take Adams because I just believe he's the better receiver too. Like, I don't mean that as a shot at Cooper Kupp. Dude's an amazing player. For a guy nobody thought of. Go ahead.
I'm going to read. This is Cooper Kupp's actual game scoring log in an ESPN Dynasty or ESPN league I'm in that is just straight PPR, no bonuses. 23.8, 36.8, 30.6, 11.4, 16.2, 34, 37.6, 24.5, 20.5, 23.5. I think the 20.5 is about the time they lost Woods.
I think it was week 9, that Tennessee game.
That's what it is. 20.5 is week 9. And then week 12, 18.6, 26.9, 31.3, 34.7. So he was having those 30-point games. Week 2 was 36.8 points. I mean, he had week 7 against Detroit. He had 37.6 points. Those were all still well Woods was there. So he was putting, and I started out by saying this is a career year. And much as we saw with Michael Thomas, if you base your entire decision-making on the tyranny of the recent and a career year, you could be setting yourself up for disappointment. But Cooper Kupp has had at least 120 targets and 90 receptions for 3 years in a row. And I think with the change of quarterback, he's the kind of guy he's also, you would say, probably coming into his prime for a receiver. He's 28 right now. The receiver prime is usually not the first couple of years. It's more like 3, 4, and so that would coincide with him kind of hitting his prime right now. Whereas Adams is slightly older, is probably at the tail end of his prime. Whereas for me, Kupp is probably just hitting his prime and has a quarterback that can maximize with a coach that loves to throw the ball.
Yeah, but and I'll agree because I want to move on from this point. I don't want to keep. We all know Cooper Kupp is very, very good. But if this is his career year, then he will. That is my only point. Is I think he'll take a tad of a step back. Where we keep saying Adams is going to take a step back, and he doesn't. So I'm curious to see what next season looks like for Cooper Kupp, because I think he's still going to. I mean, we saw. Was it 3 years ago that he had I don't even think he was wide receiver 1, but he was like top 5. He had that amazing season with Jared Goff. So he's done it before, dealt with the injury, came back. The Rams were just really bad last year. Not bad, really bad, but they were not as good as that, or the offense had not been rolling the way it usually was. So very, very curious to see what next season looks like for Cooper Kupp. Why don't you tell us a little bit about DraftKings? I'll mention, we're Matt and Brandon will have rankings. You guys can check them out on the website, unless you want to give your top 12. I haven't done them. I've been we're going to discuss the DraftKings stuff, and then we're going to talk Spiderman.
They exist, but I don't.
If you guys want to look at them, I mean, I think it's fair to say at this point, start your studs. Start the guys that got you here. You're not getting cute. You're not playing. Well, I would say you're not playing. You might actually be playing Craig Reynolds with as good as he looked last week.
I don't think Swift is coming back this week. Reynolds is the play. I
just dropped 100. I had 100. I don't know how this happened in the Dynasty League. I guess I just haven't made a lot of moves. But I haven't really been hit with injuries in this league. I had a bye. I do have Swift on this team. I had picked up Jamar Jefferson a couple weeks ago for like $10 fab. It was a long time ago. It was actually back like week 3 or 4 for like $10 fab. I still had $188 of fab money left. I spent all 188 to make sure I got Craig Reynolds, and I got him this morning. So I was like, I'm playing this week. I'm probably going to need him. So he was the wrong choice. Let me find somebody else. You're probably not starting Donovan Peoples-Jones this week unless you're just really hurting at wide receiver.
In fact, I'll go you one better. You're not starting Julio Jones this week.
There you go. Yeah, you're starting your studs. Don't overthink it this week. This is the time to play the dance with the lady that brought you kind of thing. But go ahead. Tell us a little bit about DraftKings.
Well, football fans, I'm sure we all love an action-packed, high-scoring NFL game, and if you do, you did not see it on Monday or Tuesday. But with the latest no-brainer from DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NFL, you'll be a winner once a single point is scored. New customers who bet just $1 on any team to score can win $100 in free bets. It's that simple. If Sportsbook isn't available in your state yet, you can still get in on the NFL action because everyone can play for huge cash prizes all season long with DraftKings daily sports fantasy contests. DraftKings is giving all new customers a free shot at millions of dollars in total prizes with their first deposit. So download the DraftKings Sportsbook app now. Use promo code TPPN. Bet $1 on any team to score and win $100 in free bets. If they score, you score with promo code TPPN this week at DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NFL. You must be 21 or older in New Jersey, Indiana, and Pennsylvania only. New customers only. Minimum $5 deposit, $1 wager required. One per customer. Restrictions apply. See DraftKings.com/sportsbook for details. And if you have a gambling problem, call 1-800-GAMBLER.
All right, so let's talk a little bit about the Thursday night football game. I mean, this has a shot to be a very good game as well, even though Tennessee has come in a little, struggling a little bit here. The 49ers, Elijah Mitchell is still questionable. He's supposedly coming back from a concussion, but he's dealing with I think it's a knee injury, right? He's still a little banged up with the knees. So,
and I'm leaning towards him not playing, but I guess
I think it's going to be Jeff Wilson time. And even if Mitchell plays, I think it's going to be a fairly decent split between the two, because we mentioned it a little bit on Monday's show, and I even think last week, because there was rumors that Mitchell might come back. They're in the playoff hunt. They don't want to throw him out there too early and have him get hurt. So even if he does come back and play, I think Jeff Wilson's probably still the play. But if he is active, I mean, is that what you're
and
doing?
actually they
Kinda...
just updated. They just ruled Elijah Mitchell out. So our
Okay, well, then
instincts were
even better.
spot on.
So you've got, I mean, obviously, you're probably are you playing Jeff Wilson? I mean, Debo seems to be getting a lot of run there, which
I
kind of
like
sucks. Is I'm playing Debo in like 3 spots this week, and I'm not thrilled about that.
they kind of use Debo as their big play guy there in the backfield. I think Jeff Wilson's not a bad play, especially in flex range. I am not sure I feel rock solid on my rankings, but on the first pass, I had him as a low end RB2 in the 21 to 24 range.
Yeah,
it's just if he gets a touchdown like he did last week, he makes your day. If he doesn't, he's not the kind of guy that's putting up 150 yards and or getting 5 receptions.
Yeah, and he's one of those guys that I think you're like, we just mentioned a Craig Reynolds. Like, I think they're all in that same kind of area, and I'd rather take the bet on like a Jeff Wilson, not only because of the matchup against Tennessee, but the offense he's in. So, yeah, I mean, he did technically really save your day with that touchdown, but he's going to be the worthy play here. I expect Debo's going to have a good game. Here's hoping George Kittle does, because in all the places I'm playing Debo, I actually have George Kittle. So I'm hoping George Kittle has the better day, because I need some wins here. But Tennessee's defense is not something you should be scared about. So for the Titans here, Julio Jones is questionable, and A.J. Brown returned to practice today, which is a pretty big sign. Usually that means that they're going to be ready to go. With him practicing, if he gets activated, are you throwing him in a one-and-done lineup?
Yeah, I am 100% not playing Julio Jones because he came off the injury report, which means he'll be good to go for 4 plays until, I don't know, the meat falls off the bone again. Who knows? And even if he's out there, we have seen him not be a huge part. But A.J. Brown, I feel differently. A.J. Brown is a different kind of player, has a different kind of chemistry. They are now saying he is still on injured reserve as of tonight, but it says Tennessee is expected to reinstate him from injured reserve ahead of Thursday's game, barring any setbacks after his practice session today. I would say that's a good sign. You're kind of going to have to hang out and play loose. It is a risk, but Tennessee is actually in a position where they need wins because the Colts are breathing fire down the back of their neck. They do not have a lot going on offense. I am playing A.J. Brown if he comes back in. I'm moderating expectation, but I'm hoping for a wide receiver 2 game.
Yeah, I mean, at this point is... as much as I'd probably be nervous about it, I'm with you on that because he is this offense. I mean, we talked about it on Monday. They have not been, I mean, losing Derrick Henry was a big blow. That offense still looks somewhat decent with A.J. Brown, and they lost him, and it's just been horrible. Tannehill is not afraid to force him the ball. The 49ers do not have a secondary I am really that scared about. So if Brown is out there, I think, and there's chances are you don't have any better options. So, I mean, definitely, if you guys have questions, you can hit us up at Matt at Nighthawk 7734 on Twitter, me, Sports Fanatic MB. If you're in our Discord, you can ask us on game day, or well, you can't. I almost cuss. You can't hit us up on game day because it's tomorrow. So you're really going to be. It's one of those things you're going to have to make that decision early on whether you'd rather start him or another player. I think there's very few guys that you know what.
Well, we will be live right before the game, so you can pop your question into the comments tomorrow when we're doing the Friday preview. We're
doing our Friday preview. Let me look here because I was like doing rankings, and then I was like, I just have so much stuff to do. So where did I have him at? This is great radio. I know. I am sorry to everybody. So I have him at 18. So realistically, there's one player I'm looking at because I did my top 24. There's one player in my top 18. I'd be curious what you think. Actually, 2. Although the other guy's only right ahead of him. I have Amon-Ra St. Brown at 12 this week. I think I'd probably still play him over Brown, and he's realistically someone you may have picked up off the waiver wire that you could play. The other one's Devontae Parker, but I don't know. It would depend on if someone dropped him or not because he was out for so long.
Yeah, I don't have Devontae Parker up that high. I have Amon-Ra St. Brown at 19, so not too far off of you. And I would probably play him. AJ Brown, if he comes back, right now I have like DK Metcalf, Mike Williams, and Jarvis Landry at the bottom of my 24. I would probably put him there. I might put him over Christian Kirk, who actually looked good and is probably Arizona's best target. But I would probably prefer like a T. Higgins because Baltimore has no secondary, and I think there's a chance that no one is dominant, but all three of those receivers for Cincinnati are good. So if I did not rank Brown, because I'm not confident that, if too many times this season they've told us the dude's coming back and you put all your hopes and dreams on it only to have them crushed. Yeah. So I have not ranked him yet, but I feel more strongly that I would go in the 20 to 24 range because I'm just not incredibly confident.
I'll just really quick, we could talk a little bit about this too tomorrow because I forgot we will be recording right before we go live. So there's a couple players that I'm just looking at you likely could have gotten off the waiver wire that are right around A.J. Brown for me that I think I would probably play most of these guys over A.J. Brown, even knowing what A.J. Brown can do. Because that's the thing. Like, I know a lot of people say in playoffs you want to shoot for upside. I kind of take the opposite approach. I'm just going for the guys I know are going to get me fantasy points because if you shoot for upside, you also have that shot of getting like nothing from some of those players. So the guys that I think you could have picked up off the waiver wire that I think are ranked right around him, obviously Amon-Ra St. Brown, would you play him over A.J. Brown?
Yes.
Gabriel Davis?
No.
No? Even with Cole Beasley out?
They're saying Emmanuel Sanders might come back. They're also playing the Patriots.
I know. That part is true. What about Josh Reynolds, who's been really good? No? Okay.
That's the other one. Detroit, I think Detroit can get one guy up there. Yeah. I'm not confident they're getting
my fear is you guys should then play Josh Reynolds because I'm trusting Amon-Ra in a lot of places I probably shouldn't this week.
I put him in too. So
then definitely pivot to Josh Reynolds is what you're getting from this conversation.
Why you got to wish us bad luck?
Because it's just what happens.
I'm trying to remember who's Detroit playing. I ranked both those. Atlanta. Oh, they're playing the Falcons. So yeah, I'm on Sam Brown's going to be fine.
Let's hope. That's the only bad thing is I'm also going up against Cordero in a couple of places too. So it's just
there's other people like I actually do kind of like what Brandon Cooks has been doing with.
He was. Right I
actually
there,
vaulted him back up into my top 12. A lot of people were out on him because with Tyrod there in the middle, everybody thought Tyrod was going to be a resurgence, and he kind of fell off. I saw him actually get set free in a few places just because people were so out on Houston. I am not as high on Devontae Parker as you either because Jalen Waddle got cleared. I have Waddle back up in my top 10 because
so do I. I have. Where did I put? I put Waddle at 13. So, I mean, I had 13 for Waddle.
The New Orleans Saints defense, I don't think is going to allow two receivers to be top 20.
It's because I think Lattimore is going to focus more on Waddle than Parker. That's where I still have Waddle scoring. I have him at, I think I put him like right around 14 points. I think because Lattimore won't be on him the whole time and they force feed him the ball and what he can do, like they'll give him the screen passes. He gets rushes as well. So like, I think he's going to get his, but I don't know that Parker gets matched up with Lattimore. So that's kind of why I went to him, maybe getting peppered with more targets.
I would kind of go the other way because of the routes that Waddle typically runs. I think Parker's more of the deeper. But who knows? Anytime you think you figured out matchups.
Yeah, you're wrong. Yeah, trust me, I know. That's why I set my lineup like 2 days ago, and I'm not even going to mess with it because when I overthink it, that's when you overthink, you stink. That's when I screw myself. So I set my lineup on Sunday night, and I was like, I'm not messing with it. I'm leaving it alone. I don't care how bad I want to change it. All right, so
that's why I'm glad I work on Sunday mornings.
I'm going to take the 49ers, but I do think this is going to be a close game.
Yeah, Dennis, I don't think had a chance to log a pick, but I am taking the 49ers as well. I think they're riding some good momentum.
All right, so for those of you who have not seen Spider-Man No Way Home or Homecoming, whichever, we're going to definitely talk No Way Home, but Homecoming did matter for this. We will talk to you guys. We will be live tomorrow. We will be doing the Week 16 preview tomorrow because we want to be able to enjoy Christmas. Matt, unfortunately, has to work all day, but me and Dennis want to enjoy Christmas with our families.
I'll be enjoying Christmas with my wife. She will also. She's been conscripted to work. Just like
okay.
We'll be on the radio. I'll be like, babe, I love you.
There you go. There you go. At
No,
least
no
you're-
response for a few hours. Babe, are you still there? No response for a few hours, and they'll be like, "Well, it's gonna be a rough ride home."
Yep. Yeah. I mean, you guys will at least be enjoying it together, which is all that matters. But we want to be able to spend a little bit of time with our families. So we will be live tomorrow. So last chance, if you have not seen No Way Home, to either stop watching or if you're listening on the podcast, again, we'll catch you guys tomorrow. That's it.
Or you could be like the rest of the internet, and even though we've given a spoiler warning, you could stay on, get
And then
angry,
get mad
and
at
then
us.
post about it. Just make sure it's a 5-star review.
Please, yes, please, 5-star, please. All right, so, I mean, it's the best Marvel movie that we've seen, right? It has to be.
I liked it a lot. I have it top 5. I do not have it at number 1. No.
What's number 1? I think it's probably 3 for me.
I currently, so let me pull it up. I actually, for those of you that that like movies, there is an app called Letterbox. Also, if you look on Twitter, I released a whole set of my movie reviews for the week, and No Way Home is in there. That has a link to my Letterbox. You can always see what my rankings are, and I have a few lists. So currently, I did update my MCU list. I have Spider-Man No Way Home at 5. I have Endgame at 4, Thor Ragnarok at 3, Black Panther at 2, and Guardians of the Galaxy has always been my favorite. I don't know if it's just an emotional connection. You could quibble about filmmaking. So I love No Way Home. It's possible on subsequent rewatches it'll bump up. But I really have loved what they did with Spider-Man. Previously, Far From Home was my number 5 movie, so it slid down to 6. I have them right close. I do have it as my best Spider-Man movie of all time, including Maguire and the Garfield movies, which shall not be named except for to discuss the plot here.
Well, see, I actually liked Andrew Garfield as Spider-Man. I like all of them. The only one I don't love is Spider-Man 3. It was just too convoluted, I think. But my thing was it's hard to. I think Tom Holland is, in my opinion, the best Spider-Man. I felt like Tobey Maguire was the best Peter Parker. I think Tom Holland's right there. It's so hard for me. I think Tom Holland's the best.
And this was a real showcase. I don't know how you feel. I thought it was a real showcase for Tom Holland. Our friend Ricky and I, who watch a lot of movies, we were talking about he should have does he have a realistic shot at Best Actor nomination? Because there's some real emotional swings here. There's some good humor, but there is some real dramatic work that we haven't always seen in Marvel films.
Yeah, that's one of the reasons why I think it's one of my favorites, because of everything that happens. And so, anybody who's still listening to this knows, I avoid everything like the plague when it comes to these movies. I don't want anything ruined for me. And it's funny because I was actually telling somebody about this today, because obviously we can discuss it if you want at the end. We got the teaser trailer for Doctor Strange.
Yeah.
And so, I saw it, so I'm like, okay, well, now I can't see anything else Doctor Strange, because I already feel like something got ruined.
No, you already saw the trailer. Yeah.
Yeah, I was like, I'm already upset about that because I feel like something cool was ruined, and I'll ask you about that at the end. And he was like, well, how do you avoid everything? I was like, it's funny because my wife hates it. And I don't know if I've ever told you this story, because I know you don't always get to watch a lot of NFL, but you go back and watch the Broncos games. So you probably see the TV spots that they drop all the effing time during these games.
Oh, I watch Broncos live, sadly.
Okay.
So I have a lot of time to be alone with my thoughts watching those commercials.
When those TV spots air, I don't want to watch them because I'm afraid of. So I will literally start screaming just the dumbest things in the world, like gibberish, and close my eyes so I can't hear the TV until I can turn the TV off, and I will wait a minute and then turn the TV back on because I refuse to watch anything. So I did not expect some of the things that happened in this. So let's go dark first, because I want to get past that.
You're like my wife at the end. She was so pumped. She's like, I didn't know all the old Spider-Mans and all that was so cool. Were you surprised? I was like, no, dog, that got ruined for me during the summer. I saw some stills, and she's like, well, you live a sad life.
Yeah. Oh, I agree with that. I mean, that part does suck. So that part got ruined for me, though, by someone tagging me in Twitter on the new poster because they knew like how because like I knew obviously Doc Ock and Green Goblin were going to be in it from the trailer. You get that part from that trailer, so I knew that was coming, which I was cool with. I love Doc Ock. Alfred Molina's portrayal of Doc Ock is like one of my favorite villain portrayals of all time. Like I think he nailed it. And same with why his name is Adam. Willem Dafoe is Green Goblin. Oh my God, he's amazing. So like those two are two of my favorite Spider-Man villains of all time. Up there with like I thought come on, help me out here. Vulture. What Michael Keaton Vulture I thought was really good as well.
He's like the only Spider-Man villain that didn't get to make a reappearance in this one.
Pretty much, yeah. So
because he's too busy reappearing as Batman.
Yeah, that and he's in Mobius too, which is going to be or not more.
Morbius.
Morbius. There we go. Anyway, so
real quick.
Yeah,
I've seen a million trailers for that. I can't make myself think that's going to be a good movie. Are you excited, indifferent? You're going to watch it.
I'm going to watch it. I'm curious, and I will show you the thing I sent to a friend of mine, a big Spider-Man fan. We were discussing it because you would think that he's in the MCU universe, right? Because Vulture appears in the trailer, but then he discusses Venom, and there's also pictures of Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man and something with Andrew Garfield as well, all in the same trailer that someone pointed out. So I'm very curious as to how that all folds in.
They were clearly implying with the first post-credit sequence that Venom is not in the same universe.
Yeah. That part I get.
It was.
I had not seen.
I feel like
Carnage, by the way, so I had no idea that was coming.
Sorry, you're
good.
This this movie, that a big part of the deal between Sony and Disney for making another Spider-Man was, can you make our shit cool? Our shit before the MCU cool. And so they like threw him a bone with Venom, because if you had seen Venom Let There Be Carnage, the closing sequence shows him getting sucked into a multiverse. So we knew he was going to be probably joining the Tom Holland world. Not that he was there, but not that they had been part of it, or questioning, were they part of that, but I knew he was going to be in this movie. But I feel like that it worked narratively, and I'm not saying I didn't like it, but retconning all of the previous Sony attempts at making Spider-Man felt like it was lending some MCU credibility to those films.
Yeah. Well, I like that they did it, because I feel like, obviously we know Tom Holland is signed on for 3 more movies now as Spider-Man, so I think it's a lot of, I do like that.
Has he though? Because now there's some conflicting that the deal's not closed, that they have agreed that they want to make 3 more.
I could have swore it said that because someone
one of the early reports did, and now it's like, well, we're not 100% sure, because now he's started doing a little bit. I don't know if it's like a little bit of the Daniel Craig thing after doing Bond for a while, but he's talked about wanting to step away and wanting to take a break from acting, and if he's playing Spider-Man when he's 30, and I think he's 26 now, that he's made a mistake in his life. There's no way they're doing 3 movies in the next 4 years, at the clip that they're going. So I am a little bit curious, I'm hopeful. They said they were working on a new Spider-Man trilogy, but now there's anyway, that I guess that's speculation we can wait to do at a later time, but that was a little bit interesting to me. I also wonder, how did the Into the Spider-Verse people feel? Because I don't know how you feel, but I loved Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse. I thought it was incredibly creative, and it was something really new. And now that the MCU is launching full tilt into these multiverse, and we've seen a live action Spider-Man that brought all the Spider-Men together, they did make some jokes like, I wonder if there's a universe where there's a black Spider-Man. Like, okay. But I wonder how that's going to impact the sequel to Into the Spider-Verse, supposed to come out this next year.
Yeah, that actually looks really good too. I saw the trailer for that. I'm almost. There's just no way they're going to end it with the way they did right there. I think that I know that. I guess they want to make 3 more. I can't imagine there's any way Tom Holland doesn't come back. I do remember him saying like he doesn't want to play Spider-Man for like the next 20 years, which I get. And that is a lot of the Daniel Craig thing. And I'm sure like movies like this, it probably takes a lot out of you. And especially when you're working for a company like Disney, like, right, we've seen it, like Chris Evans has mentioned it, like the things you have to do and the things you can and can't say, like there's a lot of things that go into it. I looked at, if that's what you're looking up, there is a lot of it, it's just conjecture. There's no been actual solid
and that's
report
where they
made,
said that
so,
he has corrected the false
yeah.
claims. Yeah, I mean, I feel hopeful.
Yeah, same here, because he's been my favorite Spider-Man.
But that's why it did leave in a play. I get what you're saying, that they can't leave it that way, except
they can, yeah.
That it sort of got left in a way where he achieved his mission and no one remembers him. Yeah, which that was the most gutting thing. I don't know how that hit with you, but that was the most gutting thing to me, because his relationship with Tony was such a huge part of Infinity War and Endgame, and was such a huge part of the first film post Endgame, which was Far From Home, that the idea that he just got erased was
so
gutting. That's my wife's like, that was so much sadder than I thought.
I got more torn up about the May thing than I did that, because I was really not expecting that. Like because you see her get hit by the glider, right? And I'm thinking, at that point, I was like, oh my God, like May is gonna die. But then she gets up and everything seems fine. I was like, oh, thank God. Thank God they did not do what I think they were going to do. And then all of a sudden she does. And not even just that, like, again, this points out to what you were saying, like the way he acted in that scene, the emotion, like him keep asking her to get up. And then what really got me is when Happy pulls up and then he realizes what has happened. And I was just like, I turned into a puddle. I was sitting there, I was like, because my kids went to go see it with me. So I like had a napkin and I'm just sitting here like this, because one of my sons was like sitting on my lap because he was watching the movie.
Well, and as soon as she said, with great power comes great responsibility, I started crying. And my wife's like, what the fuck? Oh my God.
Yeah. So because I agree with you, like that part is very sad when he gets like, I'll be honest, him going to the grave and Happy not recognized, that hit me a little bit, because I was like now he has like no father figure either. Like you mentioned what that was with Tony, and I feel like Happy was kind of that for him, maybe like the crazy uncle kind of thing, and for him to come up and not realize that. But I think there
was a bunch of super gutting emotional moments too, like when Andrew Garfield saves MJ.
Yeah,
and
that was
the being able to, what that meant to him when Tobey Maguire stepped into the way and prevented him from killing Green Goblin was such a, and I swear I thought they killed him right there too. I was like, these jerk-offs. Yeah. But then they kind of leave you. Although my wife was like, so did he heal when he went back? Is he okay? I'd like some confirmation.
Yeah. That was definitely I liked that's another reason why I just loved it so much, because for me, growing up with all those other Spider-Man movies, like getting the call back, like the whole my back thing, like that was awesome. I love that whole part.
So much fun.
It was such a good movie. So the one thing I'll say on the end part because I do want to ask you about one part with the movie. It didn't really bring me to tears with them not recognizing him, because I liked that he made the decision to not try and remind them who he was. Like he was like, it's that constant battle, right? That if I feel like a lot of these superheroes, these superheroes struggle with, is like, if I continue to have them in my life, they could get hurt. Like he just had happened with May. So he made the decision with them getting into MIT, which started a lot of what happened in the movie to begin with, right? When he goes to the bridge, there's like, he seemed happy with his decision. So it didn't gut me as much.
Does that kind of remind you a little bit? I'm sure you like all superhero movies. Reminded me a little bit of Superman 2, where in Superman 2, the original Christopher Reeve Superman 2, Lois knows who he is, and he gets to have this chance to be happy. But after he sees kind of the danger in the battle with Zod, he wipes it. And it's hard, because obviously it's a huge loss for him, but it's bittersweet in that he's happy for her being a safer
Yeah, that's what
life, I
I
guess,
feel like.
or a
Yeah,
more fulfilling. And she sees that MJ and Ned still have each other, which I thought was sweet.
yeah.
And they both are excited about getting in. But I
Timeline
mean, it
2, yeah,
wasn't just the girl; it was his. You're right, happy. It's his. It's he has
yeah.
no one.
Yeah, well, that's why I feel like that when because that part it was like one of those things where it's like, hey, well, like he's choosing to let them be happy and get a chance to live their life. Like that's why like that part didn't hit me. It was like I was like, it's one of those things like as an adult, I'm like, you have to make those tough decisions. Like there's a lot of times in life you make a decision that you really hate and despise and it hurts, but you do it for the better of someone else, right? Like as a parent, that's something like I look at it and I was like, if I had to choose to do that for my kids, I would do it and it would hurt. It would gut me to do something like that. But if it means something better for your children, you're going to make that decision. So like when that happens, I was kind of like, okay, like it didn't gut me. But then when he was standing at the grave and like Happy walked up and I'm thinking, he's like, oh, so someone's going to remember who he is. And then Happy's like, so how'd you know her? I was just like, oh my God, like he has
I
no
know.
one.
I thought Happy was going to remember.
Yeah. So that part like got me a little bit just because that's when it really hit me that he's like, he really has absolutely no one anymore. But so I got to ask because again, now you probably did know, I did not know that Garfield was coming back
Oh
because
yeah, I did.
anything I had seen was
They
him
released it.
defiantly saying he was not going to be in it.
They released a damn cast listing that listed Garfield and
Oh,
McGuire. So I was like,
okay.
all right, well, that got ruined for me quite a while ago. But
Gotcha.
I loved being with my wife, who was
I
pumped
loved
when
it.
she
It
saw
was
them.
so awesome.
And my friend, we went with a couple of friends. That's why I think we talked about. That's why I waited
Yeah.
till Saturday, because normally I would have been all about that Thursday life. But I was like,
Yeah.
no, we're gonna go. It's gonna be a social thing, so I had to kind of stay away from everything. It was great, and seeing everyone's reaction, there was just so much happiness. And that initial scene with Garfield and Tobey Maguire was pretty incredible, and the
Yeah.
three of them together, and
I thought
how
all of
Andrew
that-
Garfield was always Spider-Man 3.
Yeah. I thought all of that. Like when those two got there, like everything that happened with them, that point was awesome. Like I loved every minute of it. Again, I really liked Andrew Garfield. I think he got a little shortchanged with how Sony did a lot of that stuff because I thought he was actually very good. I don't. Maybe it's just me. I don't know why everybody hated him as much. I thought the movies were okay. They weren't
I didn't
great,
think
but
he was. I guess I should go back. I don't think he was terrible as Spider-Man. I thought those movies were bad.
yeah,
And it
that's
was
what I'm saying.
interesting.
Yeah.
Writing and directing has so much to do with it because particularly for me, the Amazing Spider-Man 2 with Jamie Foxx, I
Yeah.
revile as a film,
Uh-huh.
but Jamie Foxx was really good in
Good
this.
in this, yeah.
And so was Garfield. And Andrew Garfield, let me be honest, is having a hell of a year. He plays disgraced Pastor Jim Baker in The Eyes of Tammy Faye, which is still in my top 10 movies for the year. He was really great in that. He was the lead playing Jonathan Larson, the guy that wrote Rent, in a biopic musical, Tick, Tick, Boom. And then in this, he is just having an amazing year. He's been great in all of these very different roles.
He's a very good actor. Like, I think he gets shortchanged on that. Like, my first remembrance of him was Social Network.
Yeah,
and that's why, like, when he was amazing. So when he got cast as Spider-Man, it's like, okay, like this might actually be kind of good. And then I agree. I think it was more.
Well, and I love Emma Stone too. I feel like there was some kind of problem with like script direction.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Because
like,
even the lizard
Sony
guy was better in this movie.
Yeah. I think it was more just Sony mishandling that than them. That's why, that's why I've always said, like, I feel like he got shortchanged because he is also a lot like Tom Holland in the fact that, like, he loves the character of Spider-Man and wants to continue playing it. And so for me, I'm like, it sucks that he kind of got screwed that way because I thought he had a chance to be really good Spider-Man. But for us, and I'm glad that other people did it because I did not mean to, the whole whatever you want to call it, auditorium audience erupted when they came back for the theater that I was in. So that was a really cool feeling for me because I don't know about you. I went and saw Avengers twice, Endgame twice. I've seen the videos where like everybody's cheering. That didn't happen when I went. So I was just kind of like, I was sitting in a chair. I was like, oh yeah. Like when everything was happening in Endgame and like nobody else was excited. So like being there for Spider-Man when like the portal opens because I did not know, like I said, I didn't know Garfield was going to be in it. I saw a couple interviews and he was very defiant that he was not in the movie. He was like, no, they didn't ask me to come back. And they're like, but we heard. He's like, no, like, I'm serious. I'm not in it. And like, I believed him. I knew Tobey Maguire was in it because he had mentioned something about it. So I knew he was in it. And so when the portal opens and he comes in, and I knew as soon as he started, I was like, holy shit, it's actually Garfield. And then when he pulled the mask off, I mean, everybody just started cheering and clapping. I was like, let's go. And then
they're like,
Toby,
prove it. And he's hating.
Yeah,
he's like,
that was
you still need
hilarious.
to prove it. He's like, bro,
Yeah.
I can't be
No,
sure.
I don't. No, I don't. Yeah, I love that whole thing. And then Toby came in and everybody cheered against. Yeah, I loved it. I really do hope that they continue with it. Now, I did see Garfield release a statement saying that he would love to come back and play Spider-Man if they would have him. Maybe they move, and I don't know. I'd love to see him come back, honestly, even if it was a Marvel thing, better writing and everything, and be able to do something with that. Very curious to see what happens with Spider-Man moving forward. Because I do agree with you. And now that you say it that way, I guess in a way that could be the end here for it, because it does leave in a place of like, he's got the old school suit back. He's in that studio apartment, likely on his way to go work for the Daily Bugle. I hate with a passion that they left the end credit scene the way they did, then with a piece of Venom staying in the universe and giving you the thought that Venom might be coming, because I feel like that's what they're setting up for. And if they don't bring back any kind of Spider-Man, that's going to be very frustrating. But that part of it is what it is. All around great movie. So we're at an hour 11. So let's talk Doctor Strange really quick, and then we'll get out of here. So I watched a teaser trailer. Looks amazing. I don't know if I'll give you, I heard a theory that Scarlet Witch was going to be the bad guy. I feel like they're setting that up to at least not look that way based on the trailer. The one thing I hate that they gave away, and I'm curious to get your thought on this, because I was talking to a friend of mine. He disagreed with me at first, but then he ended up agreeing with me on, I hate that they gave away that evil Doctor Strange from What If is in the movie.
Oh, 100%.
Okay. Because he was like, no, I'm glad they showed it. I'm like, no. It would have been so much of a bigger drop if that happened.
Well, that's what I said.
No idea.
They're bringing... So it made me wonder, like, what else from What If is coming? Because we theorized that they were moving in that direction, and there was something about the way Strange had locked that when I saw that box, and so I was like, it looks familiar. I didn't get the impression that Scarlet Witch was the villain, nor have I heard that she was the villain. I thought that was going to be more... I think it's the dueling version of himself that's the villain.
Gotcha. Yeah, well, I heard a lot of it was more... Which... Okay, so this was before I knew anything about Spider-Man, so I'll be honest, that changed it a little bit for me. But based on what happened at the end of WandaVision, which I will also admit, I brought this up, like, the tragedy for her and Spider-Man is just ridiculous, because he had to give up everybody he loved, and she had to do it as well, and they both had to make that decision. It's very heartbreaking. But I thought because...
Maybe those two crazy kids can hook up.
Maybe. She did say that she wanted to be in a movie with Spider-Man in an interview, so maybe. But anyways, the way that it ended with her hearing her kids in the multiverse, I thought was going to be her trying to figure out a way to go find them. So that's why I thought she might end up being the villain going against Doctor Strange. That obviously, then Spider-Man happened. It kind of changed my thought process on that, but... So I'm glad that you agree with me, because I hate that they did that, because it also makes me question, like, are we getting Killmonger with the Stones back now? Because last we saw that Doctor Strange, he was keeping those two locked into it, and according to the Watcher, he was the only one that can do it. So what does it mean now that he's here? Like, there's so many questions.
Well, and so then do we have to ask ourselves, is the Marvel stars who actually dropped down and did the cartoon going to be the ones that are, so like Jeffrey Wright was a pretty big casting to just have him be the voice in a cartoon. Are we actually going to see the Watcher? Benedict Cumberbatch was one of the few name brand Avengers who actually did the voiceover work for those. And they've said too that Scarlett Johansson is supposed to be back doing some kind of Marvel project that they are being very coy about. Does that, because Black Widow was a huge part of What If.
Yeah, that's...
So are we going to get alt?
Yeah. I would think no, but I don't know. See, that's why it was very frustrating for me to see that because, like, now I have so many more questions that I didn't want to think about right now. Like, I'd have been fine with him, and I always forget what his
Well,
name is.
the good news for you is it comes out May 6th. So it's not like
Yeah,
we have
I
to wait
know.
a whole ton of time.
It's longer than I want to wait. That's for damn
Well,
sure.
so I'm curious too, because I think originally they had hoped to put Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness
It
out
was
in
supposed to come
front of
first.
Spider-Man.
Yeah.
So how does, they must have done something that flopped the storyline.
Yeah, I'm very curious because I think was supposed to come because it was supposed to be what not Hawkeye, Falcon and Winter
And
Soldier
it's
was
supposed
supposed
to
to
be
be
the
the
first
very first
show.
thing. Then it was supposed to go into WandaVision, which was supposed to lead into Doctor Strange. So clearly I think it was supposed to be more Wanda opening the multiverse because we've seen like the matchup, right, with what
Yeah.
happened in Loki with that. So I'm curious as to what that led with Spider-Man, that what they changed with Spider-Man to allow that to happen. I don't know. I'm
Because
interested to
the
see what all
question that you
happens.
have to ask is, does Doctor Strange even remember that he did it? Because he did it
Yeah.
in service of erasing Peter Parker, and he
So
should not remember Peter Parker.
yeah.
Does he even remember
I
doing it?
don't think he does. Well,
Yeah.
it's weird because in the trailer he looks very confused at times, but then at one point he does say that was not my intention in doing this. So I don't know. I'm
Yeah.
very curious to see what happens with that. It's gonna be good. So that will do it for us today, though. Matt and myself will be back with Dennis tomorrow, probably typical recording time as we preview the entire week 16 of the NFL season. Everybody enjoy the rest of your Wednesdays, and we'll be back again tomorrow.